First off, I want to thank you all for coming out today. My name is Cody Weaver, and I am a service-disabled U.S. Navy veteran, and I am also the founder of the organization Mississippi Patients for Medical Marijuana. And I want to tell you why we started Mississippi Patients for Medical Marijuana. So Initiative 65 passed in November, giving potential patients like those that you see in front of you today a glimmer of hope. A hope to see a more natural and God-given medical treatment, or God-given medicine, which would be medical marijuana. Last year I traveled all across the state, participating in Secretary of State hearings, speaking to multiple organizations, and advocating for the reasons why I supported Initiative 65. Because that it was clear to me that it was a well thought out and a well-written initiative that would not only allow patients access to medical marijuana as a medicine and as a treatment that they had not had already, but that it would expedite their availability to that medicine. In my travels, I discovered that there was an undeniably strong support of Initiative 65. And because Mississippians believed in it as I did. And I knew that come November that it would pass into law. And so for that time, we had hope, right? We had hope that we were going to get access to a medicine that is up until this point criminalized those that just wanted to ease their suffering, the suffering of a loved one, suffering of a family member due to a debilitating condition. Also in my travels, I would come across individuals that would refer to the people that supported Initiative 65 as druggies, as potheads, as drug addicts, as stoners. Well, I have a couple of individuals here with me today that are going to share their stories, because I want you to see that these are not stoners, these are not druggies, these are not potheads. These are patients and the loved ones of patients that were robbed of what they voted into law. Overwhelmingly, 74% of the state voted to have Initiative 65 written into law so that the patients of this state can have medical marijuana as a viable treatment solution, as an option for them. Since the launch of the Mississippi Patients for Medical Marijuana organization a couple weeks ago, I have received close to 100 stories of patients or loved ones of patients who are devastated and feel like all hope has been stripped of them by the Supreme Court's decision to basically throw our Initiative 65 out. And I call it our Initiative 65 because it is our Initiative 65. We voted for it. We overwhelmingly voted for it. And the Supreme Court told us that our vote does not matter. That the patients of Mississippi do not matter. Cancer patients like my friend Tim here, who's going to share his story. Or Jim, whose wife was tragically lost to a battle with lung cancer last year. These are the faces of the people that were robbed of their right to have medical marijuana as a treatment option. So let's forget about the fact that it was overwhelmingly voted for, you know. Let's forget about the fact that not only did they throw this out, but they threw out the ballot initiative process, took away the voters' right, took away your right to have it on the ballot. Let's just think about for a second the patients, the faces that you see before you that have been stripped of their right to pursue medical marijuana as a treatment option because of the Supreme Court's decision. So, why are we here? We are here to represent the voice of the patients because we want Governor Reeves to call a special session. And we want our legislators to do the right thing, and we want them to push through Initiative 65 through the legislature. We want it passed exactly as it was written, exactly as it was voted on, so that the patients that are in front of you and those that I've had close to 100 stories shared with me in 2 weeks, and I want each and every one of those people to know that we're out here fighting for them to have what they voted for so that they can have their treatment exactly as they expected. No different. So with that being said, I'd like to introduce our first speaker, Mr. Tim Floyd. He is a cancer patient who is currently in remission, and I'd like him to share his testimony with you all.
Good morning. My name is Tim Floyd from Tupelo, Mississippi. 2017, hospital, they were giving me pretty bad pain medicine, and they were gonna just give me like 30 more tabs and be like, there you go. And if I hadn't have weaned myself off of the medicine, I would have became an addict just from having my leg cut off. And then in November of last year, I got diagnosed with stage 2 Hodgkin's lymphoma. And I had to go through chemo and radiation, pretty high levels of that. And the effects of that stuff was pretty bad on me. And I truly believe that if I'd had access to the medical marijuana, it would have been easier in both of those situations. And then for them, for us to get all the votes up and get it on the ballot, get it passed, and then just to have it stripped away, man. And I'm in remission right now, but it's very possible that I'll have it again, and I'll have to go through the chemo, and I have to go through the radiation, and it's just, it really makes me want to move to a place to where I could get the help that I want. But I also want to stay here and change Mississippi. I love Mississippi, and I want to stay here and change Mississippi to a better place for me and 74% of the state. Thank you.
Thanks, Tim. Thanks for coming. I appreciate you being here to share your testimony with us. And it's stories like Tim's. How many other stories are there that are similar to his out there right now? How many other patients across this state were part of that 74% yes vote that are suffering the way that Tim is suffering, and had a glimmer of hope? There was a light at the end of the tunnel. Finally, they were going to have a natural medicine, something God-given, to help them ease their suffering, ease their pain, help with the side effects of chemo and radiation treatments. Right? There's thousands of stories. And we've got another story here for you today. We do have one more speaker that should be here any minute. But the next gentleman that I'm going to introduce, Mr. Jim Bright, is still grieving the loss of his wife due to lung cancer. And I think that he has a very powerful story, and I really want y'all to hear it. So, Jim, please come share your story, please.
I would apologize for that, but I'm not sorry. She was diagnosed in January of 2020 with non-small cell lung cancer. Didn't know a whole lot about that at that time. I know a whole lot more than I ever wanted to know. Oftentimes, and it was her case, the time the diagnosis comes down, it's literally too late. It had spread into the brain. There was multiple lesions in the brain, 5 vertebrae, multiple locations on the pelvis. Her left femur was 50% compromised. Treatment options were not, there weren't a lot, and she didn't really respond. She had great medical care. Lived out on the coast. It was a good doctor, but they have to work within the guidelines of the law. And Tim was talking about opioids. A life on opioid is not a life at all. All the medications that they treated her with were various things. Again, I didn't know this, but the side effects of medications are listed in the order of severity. And every one she was taking, the first side effect was nausea. So as the disease progressed, anybody hasn't had some exposure to cancer through a friend, a relative, an acquaintance or whatever, you know, and you see them going from a healthy individual to something that looks like it walked out of a prison camp somewhere. You know? And that took place from January to December, December 14th. She was adamant on election day that she was going to vote in person. She wasn't going to do an absentee. She was going to get up out of bed. That was not an easy feat. But she was so proud of that sticker on her chest that said, I voted. We made the decision to treat her with medical marijuana. All I can say is that it returned a quality of life that she hadn't had for a while there. The nausea went away, her appetite returned, she'd wake up, and she slept. She would wake up at 6:30 in the morning, wanted to know what was for breakfast. And we hadn't finished breakfast, and she wanted to discuss lunch. That's the difference that it made. The pain levels went down. I don't think you can ever totally erase them, but it made them manageable. The opioid use went down because we were using, they call it a tincture, it's basically an oil. Comes in an eye dropper, we give her a half a dropper 4 times a day. And it's amazing that those few drops of that liquid, the quality of life that returned to her. She voted, as I said, in person. That was on November the 22nd, the election, I think. December the 14th, she died. That's how sick she was. If it hadn't been for the medical marijuana, I don't know what would have happened. You know, I mean, the thought that we're not going to get the choice that we as tax-paying citizens of this state made. And it wasn't, you know, a narrow victory or anything like that. It was an overwhelming majority said, we want this, we need this, and this is good for the citizens of Mississippi. And I wasn't born here. I chose to live in Mississippi. I was born in Tennessee. I've been a resident of Mississippi for 30 plus years, you know. And I think it's time that we put our foot down and say, this is what we want. And we demand it. The laws are written for us, so they should be changed for us. You know, we didn't, the people that got this motion through and passed didn't do so knowing that they were violating the law. They would have changed the law before we got here, I think, I hope. But, you know, as I said, if you had seen the quality of life that it returned to her in the short time that we used it, we were using medical marijuana for about a month. But, you know, it made a huge difference in her life, and as I understand it, it can make a lot of differences in other people's lives with other ailments besides cancer. That's all I can tell you.
Thank you once again. I want to appreciate your patience. We have Miss Bethany here who drove in. How far were you driving?
I drove in from Iuka. I live right at the Alabama line. We get a lot of rain. I'm sorry we're late.
So it's okay. So I appreciate you driving down. Thank you all for your patience. And please, share us your story.
Hi. Some of you may have heard a little bit about my story from the rally speech. I was 23 when they thought I was going to be disabled for the rest of my life. And I started using cannabis and got off non-prescription medications. And then I actually moved out west to the Pacific Northwest so that I could be treated with cannabis. And I've been able to maintain better health than I've ever had before. And when the 2018 Farm Bill happened, I was able to come back here, but I had very, very limited access. I was in much better health when I was living out west. And with the Supreme Court doing this, it's going to be really hard if they don't fix it, because we might have to leave again depending on how my health goes. So it definitely creates a lot of problems with our family. We missed them a lot when we were out west. Didn't get to come home a lot. It was really tough. So we really want this here. A lot of patients need this. We've been working, a group of us, we are the 74. We've been fighting for 2 weeks now, listening to patient stories and trying to connect with everybody around the state that needs this. And it's been heartbreaking that they could take this away from us. This entire state spoke, and they spoke loud and clear, and not having our legislators behind us on this is heartbreaking. And we've got to do something about this, because if you think it's just me that'll end up moving, it won't be. It'll be your neighbors. It'll be your grandmother comes down with cancer and has no other choice. It will be your child that comes down with epileptic seizures and you have to move away from your family. It might be my story, but it will happen to everybody you know, because the more research that happens and the federal government allows us to do, we are gonna discover that cannabis will save this world. It will save our people, it will save the environment, and once the federal government legalizes it completely, we will start seeing such a positive change in this country. But Mississippi has a choice right now. We can change it now. And our legislators that we voted in have a choice, and now's the time to make it. I love this state. I'm so glad to be back here, I really am. But when I was out west, at one point there were 30 of us from North Mississippi that lived out there. That's just the people that I knew. So, you can imagine the people that I didn't know that lived out there, and you can imagine the extreme amount of people that are gonna leave this state, especially after we spoke loud and clear. We really want any legislator that is willing to step up and try to change this to please help. You have patients that are dying in this state right now. Children who are laying in bed having seizures and their parents are watching them. They shouldn't have to do this. We can't allow this to happen anymore. And it's time to change it. And I drove 4 hours this morning just to talk about that, because it's so important. And the more people that we can get on board with this and supporting us, and the more legislators we can get behind us to change this, we really have a chance to save lives, lots of lives. Not only that,